Woodworking tools keep changing, and every year we see ideas that promise better accuracy, less setup, and more control. Some tools quietly improve how we work, while others completely change the rhythm of the shop. Today, we are walking through 20 Kreg tools that feel purpose-built for real woodworking tasks. They focus on precision, repeatability, and everyday convenience. Let's see how they are used, what makes them different, and which type of woodworker benefits the most from each one. We have all been there. You line up the drill, feel confident, then halfway through the bit starts to drift. That moment usually reminds us why straight holes are harder than they look. This is where the Drill Guide Pro quietly earns its place on the bench. You use your regular drill, but this guide adds control that feels closer to a small drill press. Angle adjustment locks anywhere from -45 degrees to 45 degrees, so angled holes stop feeling risky. The built-in depth stop helps you repeat the same hole depth again and again, which saves time when the project needs consistency. Underneath, the grip max feet hold tight on slick plywood or rough lumber. That grip matters once pressure increases. There is also a V-groove in the base, which keeps round stock from rolling away. For narrow boards, the centering guide helps place holes right in the middle without measuring each time. It works with most drills that use a 3/8 inch chuck. At around $39.99, it feels like a smart accuracy upgrade, rather than an extra gadget. If you have ever installed cabinet pulls, you know the stress usually shows up after the first few drawers. One handle sits just a bit off, and suddenly every mistake feels obvious. That is exactly where the cabinet Hardware Jig Pro XL fits into your workflow. This jig focuses on repeatability. Once you set the stops, every pull lands in the same position without rechecking measurements. It supports center-to-center spacing up to 38 inches, which helps a lot with wide drawers and long handles. Dual contact points keep it square against the surface, and that adds confidence when drilling into finished panels. The drill guides slide along the bar, so 3-hole handles are not an issue. You can flip it easily for left or right swing doors, which keeps things moving. The aluminum body feels solid, yet it does not feel bulky in hand. For smaller knobs, you can remove extra sections. At around $129.99, it makes the most sense when consistency matters more than speed. Sometimes the easiest way to improve your cuts is not a new saw, it is a better blade. You notice that pretty quickly with the SureCut 4.5-inch finishing blade once it goes on your compact circular saw. This blade uses 36 carbide teeth, which favors clean edges over aggressive cutting. Plywood edges look smoother, and hardwood cuts feel more controlled. The anti-stick coating helps reduce heat, which lowers the chance of burn marks on softer woods. There are relief cuts in the blade body, and that reduces vibration during longer passes. It fits saws with a 3/8 inch arbor, both corded and cordless. The thin kerf at 1.25 millimeters helps smaller saw motors maintain speed without strain. Rated for up to 5,000 RPM, it matches most tools in this size range. At about $19.99, it is an easy upgrade that improves results without changing how you work. Pocket hole joinery usually means setting up a jig, clamping the workpiece, then grabbing a drill. It works, but it slows the pace. The Pocket Hole Joiner Kit approaches the process in a much more direct way. Everything lives in one handheld tool, powered by a 20-volt brushless motor. You drill the pocket hole in one smooth motion without clamping in most cases. Material thickness adjusts from 1/2 inch to 1.5 inch without tools, and depth settings change just as easily. Grip max surfaces and support feet help keep narrow boards stable. That helps with face frames and rails. Dust collection is built in, using either the chip bag or a 1 1/4 inch vacuum port. The metal frame feels rugged, and the folding handle helps with storage and transport. It includes a 4 amp hour battery and charger. At around $349.99, it fits best if you rely on pocket holes often and value speed with consistency. Breaking down large panels accurately can be tricky, especially when space is limited. Table saws are not always an option. That is where the Adaptive Cutting System Master Kit feels like a complete solution rather than a single tool. You get a plunge cut track saw, a 62-inch guide track, and a dedicated project table. The saw uses a 6.5-inch blade with 40 carbide teeth and a thin 1.6mm kerf. Cut depth reaches 2 and 1/8 inch at 90 degrees and 1.5 inch at 45 degrees. Safety features include a riving knife, blade brake, and anti-kickback control. The blade left design improves visibility for right-handed users. The project table adds guides and stops, which helps with repeatable cuts and panel control. Priced around $1,100, this setup suits precision-focused work in smaller shops where flexibility matters. If you have ever tried to make straight, repeatable cuts with a regular circular saw, you know how easy it is to drift offline. Measuring again and again also slows things down. That is where the rip cut starts to feel genuinely useful in your setup. It turns your standard circular saw into an edge-guided cutting tool. You set the width once, lock it in, and then every cut follows that same line. The capacity goes up to 24 inches, which covers most plywood rip cuts and cross cuts you handle in the shop. The universal sled accepts most left blade and right blade circular saws, along with worm drive saws and even jigsaws. That flexibility means you likely already own a compatible tool. The oversized edge guide rides smoothly along the workpiece edge, which helps keep pressure consistent from start to finish. There is a built-in measuring scale with a lens cursor, so dialing in exact widths feels straightforward. Built from aluminum and impact-resistant polymer, it holds alignment well. At around $44.99, it makes sense when accuracy matters, but space is limited. Dowels can create strong, clean joints, but alignment is often the tricky part. One small shift can throw the whole joint off. That is where the Dowel Jig Kit focuses its attention. This jig gives you several alignment options, including reference lines, alignment pins, and dowel grooves. That flexibility helps match the setup to the project instead of forcing one method every time. The hardened steel drill guides help keep holes straight, even after repeated use. You get removable drill guide blocks in 1/4 and 3/8 with a 1/2-inch option available if you expand later. There is also onboard measuring and a stop collar system, which helps repeat drilling depth without constant checking. It clamps securely using trigger-style clamps, which adds stability during drilling. The body is impact-resistant polymer, so it feels durable without being heavy. At about $49.99, it works well for furniture, cabinets, and edge-to-edge joinery, where clean alignment matters. Every shop needs a tool that handles small, awkward jobs without fuss. Flush cuts, plunge cuts, and detail sanding often fall into that category. The Oscillating Multi-Tool fits right into that role. It runs on a 20-volt brushless motor, which gives consistent power and longer runtime. Speed adjusts across 6 settings, ranging from 7,000 to 17,000 OPM, so you can slow things down for control or speed up for tougher materials. Blade changes are tool-free, which helps when switching between cutting and sanding. It supports open and closed-back universal accessories, so compatibility stays broad. The trigger-style control with a lock-on option helps reduce hand fatigue during longer use. There is vibration damping built into the design, and the metal housing adds a solid feel. An integrated LED light helps with visibility in tight spaces. At around $139.99 for the tool only, it fits best as a dependable problem solver rather than a primary cutting tool. Curved cuts and interior shapes demand control more than raw power. That is where grip style starts to matter. The barrel grip jigsaw feels designed around that idea. The barrel grip keeps your hand close to the cut line, which helps guide the blade more precisely, especially in tight spaces. Inside, a 20-volt brushless motor delivers steady performance across different materials. Auto mode starts slow and then ramps up speed, which helps when entering a cut cleanly. You also get 6 variable speed settings and 4 orbital positions, so you can tune the action based on the material. Blade changes are tool-free with a lever release, and it uses standard T-shank blades. Dust management includes a blower and vacuum port compatibility, which keeps the cut line visible. Dual LED lights help with accuracy. Bevel adjustments run from 0 degrees to 45 degrees. At about $149.99 for the tool only, it suits detail work where control matters more than speed. Small routing jobs often demand precision rather than power. Edge profiles, dados, and light joinery benefit from control and visibility. That is where the trim router fits naturally. It uses a 20-volt brushless motor with variable speed from 10,000 to 30,000 RPM. That range helps match the speed to the bit and material. The rack and pinion depth adjustment allows fine-tuning, which makes small changes feel predictable. Dual LED lights and a clear base plate keep the bit visible during use. The soft start motor reduces sudden movement at startup, which adds confidence. Dust collection is built in through a 1 1/4 inch port, helping keep the work area cleaner. It accepts both 1/4 inch and 6 mm collets and supports bits up to 1 3/8 inch in diameter. The compact body with rubberized grip feels comfortable during longer passes. At around $129.99, it works well for precise routing, without pulling out a full-size router. A full-size circular saw still handles many jobs better than compact tools. Depth, torque, and stability matter once you move into framing or thicker stock. That is where the 7 1/4 inch circular saw earns its spot. This saw delivers strong torque through a 20-volt brushless motor, which helps maintain steady cuts without bogging down. Cut depth reaches 2 7/16 at 90 degrees and 1 7/8 inch at 45 degrees, so cutting 2 times material feels straightforward. The bevel range goes up to 57 degrees, which adds flexibility for angled work. It comes with a 40-tooth SureCut finishing blade, which produces cleaner edges than basic stock blades. The AccuCut Ready Base allows guided cuts when paired with the track system. Soft start reduces kickback, and the electronic brake stops the blade quickly. An LED light and a 1 1/4 inch dust port help with visibility and cleanup. At around $144.99, it balances power, precision, and control well. There are times when a full-size saw feels oversized for the job. Tight spaces and detail cuts demand something more compact. That is where the mini circular saw feels right at home. It uses a 4.5 inch blade and still delivers solid cutting performance thanks to its 20-volt brushless motor. Cut depth reaches 1 11/16 at 90 degrees and 1 1/16 inch at 45 degrees, which covers trim, plywood, and light framing tasks. The included 36-tooth SureCut blade favors smooth finishes, especially on plywood edges. An auxiliary handle adds control during precision cuts, which helps when working close to finished surfaces. Soft start reduces sudden movement, and the electronic brake improves safety. The all-metal base plate adds durability. Dust collection runs through a 1 1/4 inch port. At about $149.99 for the tool only, it suits controlled cutting where maneuverability matters more than depth. Fastening tasks often happen in tight spaces, and that is where tool size starts to matter. Power still counts, but control matters just as much. The portable impact driver balances both well. This compact driver measures just 4.4 inches in length, yet it delivers up to 2,200 inch-pounds of torque. The 20-volt brushless motor provides steady output across 3 speed settings. Assist mode helps prevent overdriving screws in softer materials like plywood, which protects the surface. Reverse assist mode pulses before backing screws out, which reduces stripping and improves control during removal. The 1/4 inch all-metal hex collet holds bits securely, and changes feel quick and positive. An integrated LED light helps in dark corners and cabinets. The metal housing adds durability without extra bulk. Priced around $139.99, it fits well for cabinetry, assembly work, and anywhere space is limited. Dust control rarely feels exciting, yet it quietly affects tool performance and shop comfort. Keeping filters clean saves time and money. That is where the dust separator becomes surprisingly valuable. It captures up to 99.9% of dust and debris before it reaches your vacuum. That can extend filter life by up to 10 times, which reduces maintenance. It fits most standard 5-gallon buckets, so setup stays simple. Filter max fins help trap fine dust while maintaining suction. The swivel top rotates up to 90 degrees, which reduces hose tension and tipping. A transparent lid lets you monitor fill level and airflow without opening the bucket. It works well with shop vacs and dust ports across multiple tools. For any shop that values cleanliness and efficiency, it feels like a smart addition. Pricing typically sits in a reasonable accessory range, especially given long-term savings. Sanding is one of those steps we all want to finish faster, but rushing usually shows in the final surface. Control and comfort matter more than raw speed here. That is where the 20-volt 5-inch random orbit sander starts to feel like a solid, everyday tool. You get variable speed control from 6,000 to 12,000 OPM, which helps match the sanding action to the material. Slower speeds feel better for fine finishing, while higher speeds help with stock removal. The 3 30-seconds-inch orbit strikes a nice balance between smooth results and efficiency. The grip feels comfortable during longer sessions, and the anti-vibration design helps reduce hand fatigue. Dust collection works through the included bag or a vacuum connection, and the sealed pad improves suction right at the surface. It uses standard 5-inch hook and loop discs, so supplies stay simple. This kit includes a 2.0 amp-hour battery, which keeps it lightweight in hand. At around $199.99 for the kit, it suits finishing work where consistency matters more than speed. Traditional mortise and tenon joints look great, but setup time can slow projects down. Routers and complex jigs are not always ideal. That is where the Mortisemate Loose Tenon Jig offers a more approachable method. You use a standard drill to create clean mortises, which keeps the process familiar. The jig supports material thickness from 1/2 to 1.5 inch, covering common furniture parts. What really helps is the auto-indexing step-down system, which lowers the cutter by 1/16 inch with each pass. That feature keeps depth consistent without constant adjustment. Micro adjustment screws help fine-tune mortise width, and the included 6mm carbide cutter produces clean results. There is also a built-in work surface, which helps keep clamping secure. For hidden joinery that stays strong and clean, this jig offers a practical alternative. Pricing typically lands in the mid-range for joinery tools, especially considering the versatility it adds. Finding studs should feel simple, yet electronic finders often give mixed signals. Physical confirmation still feels more trustworthy. That idea sits at the core of the LaserMark magnetic stud finder. It uses rare earth magnets to locate screws or nails behind drywall, so results feel direct rather than guessed. Once attached, the tool stays on the wall hands-free, which helps when marking or measuring. The built-in laser projects a vertical line, showing the stud path clearly. A bubble level keeps the laser straight, which helps with cabinet or shelf installs. Marking notches allow you to mark positions without removing the tool, reducing wall damage. The compact size makes it easy to keep in a pouch or drawer. For cabinetry, shelving, and wall-mounted projects, this tool feels simple and dependable. It is priced accessibly, which makes it an easy add-on for accurate installs. Not every project uses thick stock. Drawer boxes, small frames, and lightweight assemblies need a cleaner approach. That is where the pocket hole Jig Micro fits in. This jig creates pocket holes that are 33% smaller than standard ones, which keeps fasteners discreet on thin material. It supports 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch stock, covering many small-scale builds. The included 19/64" micro drill bit pairs cleanly with the hardened steel guides. The twist-apart design lets you adjust spacing between holes, which adds flexibility for narrow parts. Grip max surfaces help keep the jig steady without slipping during drilling. The body uses impact-resistant polymer, so it holds up to frequent use. For projects where standard pocket holes feel oversized, this jig offers a cleaner solution. Pricing usually sits around $39.99, which feels reasonable for specialized joinery. Clean corners can elevate the look of a project, yet freehand routing rarely feels consistent. Templates often solve that problem. That is where the corner routing guide set comes into play. This set includes guides for multiple radius sizes from 1/4 up to 2 inches, along with chamfer options at 1/2, 1, and 2 inches. You attach it to your rotor, and the guide controls the shape, keeping corners uniform across parts. The large handle improves control, and the Grip Max surface helps keep the guide from shifting during the cut. Adjustable edge stops help position the guide accurately on different stock sizes. Swapping profiles does not require tools, which keeps the workflow smooth. It works well for tabletops, shelves, and decorative edges. The set stores in a protective case, which helps keep everything organized. Pricing fits the category of specialty routing accessories with clear visual payoff. That was all. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.